Last week, Logan Paul made over $5,081,490 selling digital trading cards of himself known as NFTs.
NFTs, non-fungible tokens. That's what it stands for. Unable to be duplicated, replicated, one of a kind.
Yep. Non-fungible tokens. So there's only 3,000 available to purchase. He sold them for over $2,000, and he sold 2,500 of them in a 36-hour window. The rest destroyed.
Now, if you're anything like us, you're probably a little bit skeptical or a lot skeptical about why people would buy these and what an NFT even is. Where did the word fungible come from?
I hadn't heard it until last week.
No idea. Now I hear it every day, all the time. It's all I think about. Fungible or not?
Is this fungible?
I don't know.
Am I fungible?
You're not fungible.
I have no idea.
The family dog is not fungible. So in this episode, we're going to speak to some experts and try and clear up a few questions that we have about NFTs. Number one, what is an NFT? Number two, why would someone want to buy one? Number three, how can creators use NFTs? And then lastly, number four, we're going to brainstorm our own brand and think about how we would use an NFT.
Like, how does this apply to us? Is this real? Should we be making $5 million? I don't know. Maybe?
It'd be nice, but yeah, like what is it? What's going on?
So before we start the episode, if you could like the video, that would be awesome. That really helps us out.
It helps more than I would have thought. Like if we ask, it happens, which is very nice and kind of you to do that. Mm-hmm. And then it does surface the video, and it's amazing that that works. You would think it's so important. We have to go to all these lengths to ask people to like the video. YouTube, why don't you just make the like button bigger?
Is the like button fungible?
I don't know. Too much? I don't know.
That felt very fungible of you. And we're really curious. So throughout this week, there were certain moments where both of us kind of actually discovered what an NFT was and why it was valuable. And we're really curious to hear from you guys in the comments. At what point in this episode, or what is the analogy or the moment where you're like, oh, I get it. I'm down to buy an NFT.
Or I'm not down to buy it, but I think I get it.
All right, roll the intro. So there's a couple of things that have been really confusing to me. Honestly, actually, Logan's trading card is something that helped me understand it a little bit more, but NBA Top Shots, very confusing. If you guys don't know, you go to NBA Top Shots, you look at on the website, there's a clip of LeBron James dunking, and it's selling for $35,000. And it's a video that the NBA owns. And you own...
What do you own?
What do you own when you buy that? Because... right now, I could go to the website and watch that clip, and cool, I'm getting the experience of watching the clip, and but someone else owns it, and they had to pay $35,000 to own that, but then the NBA owns it. So anyway.
We had the same feeling about Logan Paul's trading cards. Can't you just take a picture of the trading card? Don't you own it? So we had a lot of skepticism a week ago about this entire NFT space. We're not very comfortable transacting with cryptocurrencies. It's not something that we're very informed on, so it was a lot of new information for us very quickly. And that's kind of why even the title here of this video suggests that Logan Paul is selling air. Because what is he really selling? Is he selling nothing? Is this all a sham? So yeah, that's what we were like, okay, we need to research this, understand it a little bit better, and let all of you hopefully learn through us learning about NFTs.
So we have some amazing interviews that helped us figure this out. But one of the things that actually came to life in the interviews was helping us understand the difference between what is fungible and what is non-fungible. I think that's a good place to start.
So NFT stands for non-fungible token. And non-fungible means that you can't exchange it. Like it's a one-of-a-kind item. It's the Mona Lisa. You can't exchange another Mona Lisa for the other Mona Lisa. There's only one. Whereas fungible, you can take $1 and exchange it to someone else's $1. And that's fine. You're okay with that transaction.
So yeah, a dollar is a dollar is a dollar, right? That's the definition of fungible. And even the way that someone described it to us, where it was like, if I give you $10, you could give me two $5 bills, and I'm actually completely fine with that trade. And so you start to understand a little bit more of like, what is something that's fungible? It's like, I don't really care that it's this $10 bill. It represents value, and I could get that value actually in exchange for something else. Non-fungible means I have something, it represents value, and it's only in that form that it represents that value.
Now, the next part of it is token, non-fungible token. And that's where there's this crypto element, this blockchain element, which you and I are not equipped to explain.
No.
By no means.
I do not live in the blockchain. I think what I said to you over text when we started talking about this was, I'm pretty sure if you own an NFT, that means you're assuming that eventually we'll all live in the matrix because you're buying digital property. And so you're like a digital real estate owner. Anyway, I went down a path that was clearly incorrect.
You and I have had multiple nights where we're texting back and forth, getting ourselves into a frenzy over whether these things are valuable or not.
Right.
So that's when we decided we have to speak to some experts, and that's what we did.
Okay, so we're going to lead into our first interview with an expert, and this is with Jen Lee, and we're going to explain who she is in a second. But as we get into these interviews and these conversations that we've had, really curious for all of you guys, and just remember, like, put in the comments, is there anything that Jen says or anything in this conversation that actually tips you into a point where you're like, okay, I get it now, I'm ready to buy an NFT?
And if it's not Jen, it may be our conversation with Jess after, who happens to be followed by Barack Obama. So
Jen Lee is a writer, she's a creator, she's just all around someone who does a ton of stuff, very impressive and really thoughtful. She works for Justin Kan, who is the co-founder of Twitch, pretty successful company.
Who now also has his own YouTube channel.
So Justin has his own YouTube channel, and they actually minted one of Justin's videos and are selling it as an NFT. So anyway, I'll lead that in. She's knowledgeable about it. She helps us discover what is an NFT.
Colin sent me a tweet that said, Justin's going to be minting his YouTube videos and selling them as NFTs.
Could you explain that entire sentence?
What does that mean?
The best way of how I would describe this whole process is imagine a autograph. So like, you go to your favorite sports stars and you like have a picture of them. You're like, hey, like, can you please sign this? This would be awesome. You see that have a market in the whole like physical world, right? So kind of how I think about NFTs, especially how we're thinking about it, there's like many applications of it. So don't get me wrong. There's like many different ways of how people can get value from it. But kind of Justin's YouTube videos, we are minting as certified Justin Kan stories, which are basically digitally autographed versions of his YouTube videos. So the idea is that he kind of like signed them and they're unique to you, whoever owns the NFT. So that's kind of how we're thinking about Justin minting his YouTube videos as stories as an actual non-fungible token.
Can you explain to me the buyer of this? Like, who is the person who wants that and what can they do with that?
There's definitely a sort of like novelty and kind of collection angle to it. It's kind of like, hey, like I want to be the person who is part of this journey, part of like Justin starting his YouTube channel and hopefully being there before it grows and blows up one day. But I also think that there's another different angle there too, where you can actually offer value to the holders, to your supporters. So as a creator, you want to be able to give back to your fans to kind of be like, hey, I see you commenting, I see you here, but hey, how do we kind of make this kind of like official? So for what we're doing for our NFT holders, we're actually going to be doing NFT shareholder meetings where like Justin is going to get on a call with all of them, and you can only get access to that call if you're a holder of one of his NFTs. Third, the other angle that kind of blew up is investment. With the kind of popularity of NBA Top Shots, like a LeBron dunk shot is now $50,000. There is a huge investment angle to it too. I'm not saying this specifically for Justin, but in the market NFTs, it's super hot right now, and it's all a supply and demand. That is also another angle that people are looking at where, hey, how can I collect rare things that might appreciate in value and potentially sell that to someone who would realize that value?
So when we talk about owning the Top Shot dunk of LeBron, there's no actual ownership over the footage. Like, of course, that footage is owned by the NBA. They get to choose what to do with it. Anybody can record that footage, share that footage of what that looks like. Mm-hmm. So what is it that makes the NFT or the token or whatever it is that what is it? Like, what is it that you're owning and where does it live?
I guess I'll start with an analogy first. Have you ever been to the Louvre?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I have.
Okay. A lot of people go to the Louvre, go to that one room where the Mona Lisa is, and you're probably like 10 rows back trying to like snap a picture of the Mona Lisa. And you walk home with a picture of the Mona Lisa. However, you would say it's very different than the Louvre, who actually has the Mona Lisa, and like basically whoever owns that, right? It's very different than like the picture that you snapped on your phone.
The museum who owns the original Mona Lisa can actually drive a ton of revenue because they're selling tickets for the experience of seeing the original Mona Lisa. Where I get caught up in the NBA Top Shot is the experience of seeing the original LeBron clip is the exact same whether you own the token or not. Right? Like watching the clip is the exact same experience. Going into the Louvre is a different experience than seeing a photo of the Mona Lisa.
But the difference is having the ability to trade the ownership or sell the ownership.
So that the experience of reselling is the unique experience that the buyer wants.
That, I would say, is one of the main ones that probably majority of people are looking at. But I would say that there are actually other use cases of this too, where you can now actually have your own digital museum of your collection. That concept is actually also digitally manifested itself as well, where there are platforms where you can display your unique collection. And then the other thing too, in terms of buying and selling, and why this is really important for creators, is that you can actually bake into the contract how much the original artist gets back per every transaction. So you can actually bake in a for example, a 5% transaction in perpetuity. So whoever resells it later down the line, the original person who created it will get that percentage, which is really cool, and why it's like super important for like creator economy.
Okay, so where we left off with Jen there was this idea of the flexible contract, where every time one of these NFTs is sold, a portion of the resale value goes back to the original artist or creator. And that is an element that I think does not really exist in the physical world when it comes to reselling an asset.
Yeah, collectibles. And let's just take streetwear as an example, because I had a friend who worked at a streetwear company, and one thing he said to me was, it's really challenging when you start to realize that most of your sales, like at scale, what's happening is the most lucrative part of the business is the resale. And the brands are not connected to that resale. So you buy a Supreme brick for $100, or I don't know how much those sell for. Let's just say you buy a Supreme brick for like $1,000. Supreme gets $1,000 from you, but then you put it up on eBay or Grailed or something and it sells for $3,000. You made money, Supreme didn't make money. And then after it sold for $3,000, maybe one day it sells for $10,000. So it keeps going up in value, keeps appreciating, and more money is transacted on it. But Supreme only made $1,000 from it. So eventually it could be $20,000 are transacted on this one brick that Supreme only made $1,000 on. So the suggestion with flexible contracts is that actually a portion of that money every time it's resold would go back to Supreme.
The conversation is going to this place where NFTs can be really valuable for artists and creators over time, helping them make more revenue, direct revenue potentially, from what they're creating. And that's where we started to have a lot of questions that were left unanswered of how are creators actually going to utilize these moving forward?
I think Jen helped me understand what an NFT was and why it was comparable to art or collectibles. But I still didn't really know why creators should get involved in NFTs. Like, what happens to the buyer? What happens to the person who bought the Logan Paul NFT? You know, I know there was some perks there about like they get the Pokemon box breaks and stuff like that, but like, so what? They own a image that some graphic designer made of Logan Paul. Like, who cares?
Is there really value over time?
Now, I think what happened in our next interview with Jess was when I started, the light bulb started to go a little bit more. So Jess Sloss is someone who DM'd us on Twitter. And Jess just said like, hey, he's a big fan. He wants to chat. And he's doing stuff in the crypto and creator space. And it was like, perfect timing, Jess. Also, Jess has a really big beard, which I will trust anyone with a big beard when it comes to blockchain, crypto, and NFTs.
Of course, absolutely.
Absolutely. So Jess runs a company called Seed Club. We'll get into that a little bit more in the interview, but he helps us understand a little bit more about how creators can interact with NFTs. Jess, I wanted to start with this question. First of all, who are you? What do you do? And why does Barack Obama follow you on Twitter?
Oh, wow. Okay, yeah. So my name's Jess. I'm the instigator at an organization called Seed Club. We're a social token incubator. So we help creators navigate this sort of wild world of crypto that includes fungible tokens, non-fungible tokens, a whole bunch of words that probably don't mean a whole lot to most of you out there. But why Barack Obama follows me on Twitter. I think I was just really early into social media, and I think he joined. I have no idea. This is like probably the third time it's been brought up in an interview, though. So well done on your research there. I haven't had any interactions with him. Still waiting for an invitation to an event where I can meet Michelle Obama.
So from a high level, could you explain to us and to our audience what an NFT is?
Sure. NFT means non-fungible token. It's a unique, non-copyable thing that exists out on a blockchain. Most notably the Ethereum blockchain, but on any blockchain. And so you can think of blockchains as these big, immutable public ledgers of record. And I think like the best analogy is just to think of it being like a way of indicating that something is the original and is owned by somebody or something. You know, if you think about the history of the art world, like the idea of having provenance and that, you know, the signature of an artist on a piece that they've created can create a lot of long-term value. So I think that's the most interesting thing about the space is this idea of being able to write something unique to the blockchain that there can only be one thing of that somebody can now own. Okay,
so now from a buyer's perspective, where does the value lie in purchasing an NFT? Because we've seen a lot of like memes on social media, people screenshotting perhaps the Logan Paul card and saying, okay, now I own it too. What is the value? What is the reason to purchase and be an owner?
So, I mean, I think this is just such a huge question full of uncertainty. And so, I think the honest answer is I don't know, but I have some ideas. I think the Mona Lisa is a really interesting example, and this idea of, you know, somebody screenshotting something and then saying, okay, now I own it, it kind of falls apart when you think about it in the terms of the Mona Lisa. Like, I don't know about you, but you've probably come across hundreds, if not thousands, of pictures of the Mona Lisa, posters of the Mona Lisa, you know, other maybe reprints of the Mona Lisa hanging up on walls all over the world, and yet the original Mona Lisa is the thing that really truly has value. And in fact, in many ways, like the more widely these things are shared and recognized, the more value the initial, the validated, the attested original has, right? And so I think that's, one of the interesting theses is that, owning a piece of culturally relevant media is going to be valuable in the future. And NFTs are like the ownership mark of this culturally relevant media. And so you can see that in art, right? Where there's actually people issuing one-of-one NFTs on applications like Foundation or Super Rare. And the idea there is that, I own this one piece. And if this artist gets more valuable or more famous in the future, the good chance that the art that I have that just happens to be digital will be more valuable in the future. And when I was talking to Jen yesterday about what she's doing with Justin, I think it's fascinating to see, like, in many ways, you can imagine buying one of these NFTs that represents a video from a new creator is kind of like investing in the future of potential success of that creator. It gives, it's a new source of revenue for that creator. Plus it gives me as a fan a way of saying, well, I was first, I owned the first video. I was there from day one. Maybe it didn't cost me a whole lot right now, but as soon as you guys hit 1 million subs, me owning your second video, I think would probably have some value to a certain set of collectors.
So if you're a holder of an NFT issued by a creator, let's continue with the Logan Paul example. He issued 3,000, I think like 2,500 people bought. So there's an opportunity potentially for resale, but then for a creator specifically, you can also package in this community, like you're mentioning, where you're one of those 2,500 people. And as he sees fit, he could have probably marketed from the get-go, but he also can continue to roll out perks to those people. So it's sort of like a modern day membership club, or it could be, correct, for a creator?
Yeah, I think this is where it gets really, really exciting. What you can do essentially is use these tokens to give you to gate access to a community. So if you hold on to a Logan Paul token, only people with Logan Paul tokens could join, say, a Discord channel or a Telegram channel. And so what we're seeing more broadly is this move from, membership where you're paying a subscription on a monthly basis to membership where you're holding a token or a certain number of tokens to get access to that community. So I think what we'll see often, and this is like, we're just seeing this emerge, is that creators will sell NFTs to their early fans, and then at some point in the future, probably airdrop fungible tokens to their fans, because there's a whole bunch of value in having a token that's more freely traded that they can use to give away and reward people who create value in their communities. Kind of starts to act more like equity or like a mixture of equity and currency, which I think is what most tokens are best described at. And there's just a whole bunch of things you can do there. So, I think there's a big design space on how people can play with how to create value in these things. And one is the collectability nature of them, and the other, I think, is access. And most likely the most interesting use cases are going to be sort of smashing those two together and seeing what comes out.
I have a question. What did you like and potentially not like or thought could have been done differently with Logan Paul's rollout of his NFT?
Oh man, I have hot takes on this.
So
first of all, I am broadly supportive of any creator that's stepping into the space. I've been in crypto since 2017 through a bunch of market drawdowns, and I truly believe that NFTs and social tokens are the thing that's going to bring the broader community of human beings out there into the crypto world, which I think is just net benefit. So shout out to Logan Paul, well done. I think the biggest question you need to ask yourself if you're a creator in the space is, who am I creating this thing for? Am I creating it to make money? Am I creating it for me? Or am I creating it to reward my fans? And I think the creators that do the latter are going to really win big. I've had the opportunity to consult with a bunch of YouTubers and creators around this. And my advice is always to jump in and play nice with the crypto people. Don't try to use these tools because you can make money. And I think what happens with a lot of bigger names is that they get approached by platforms. There's a lot of money that's in the space and are given bags of money to go do a social token, per se. And so we can see that with Yachty Coin. So Yachty Coin launched a token, and there isn't, from what I've seen so far, not a whole lot behind it, community-wise, long-term value-wise for the fans. And I think it's just going to leave a lot of people with a bad taste in their mouth. I don't know what the case will be for Logan here, but I think there's a way to do tokens that really are saying, okay, hey, I value you, fan, and I'm going to give you more value than I'm going to take here. And guess what? I think if you do that strategy, you're ultimately going to create more value across the board. So I'm really watching to see what Mr. Beast does in this space. I think he's just consistently proven that he is a give first type person, and I think has built a massive platform because of that. And my guess is it'll be really generous, and I think it's going to chart a path forward for at least an example for other creators stepping into the space.
I think though on Mr. Beast, just like something that we talked to Jimmy about, finger on the app when he did that, when he rolled out the app. And I think the world of a Mr. Beast token also is like entrance into his game show, right? And I think that there's probably a world where it's like, okay, finger on the app rolls out, anyone can participate and win $100,000 if they keep their finger on the app. But maybe there's another game that only token holders can play. And then it starts to get really interesting where it's like, okay, then that token has a ton of resale value, because if you want entrance into the Mr. Beast game, I have a token and there's only 100 people in the world who can play this game.
Yeah, it's sort of like super fans can benefit, but also the creator, like Mr. Beast, can benefit. It's almost like a symbiotic relationship where they, with the right perks, both groups get to grow together.
I think that's the key thing here, right? Like you're aligned in incentives. And I think the evolution is one where Mr. Beast, imagine, like, I think creators have this sort of like really short, they're almost like NFL players in a lot of ways. Like, you seem to have a really short shelf life. It's pretty intense, like tastes change. But being able to build sort of like an institution, or it's even better than a corporation, that your fans have ownership in, and that you're sort of evolving with and collaborating on, that could last forever, I think is really fascinating. Like the idea of access to, it's like a golden ticket, if you will, to get into the community, I think makes a lot of sense. You could later on all sorts of incentives to get your fan base to bring more people over. I think if you look at what Eric has done with that push to 1 million, there's a lot of interesting ways you could use tokens for that. But I think more broadly, like just imagine, Mr. Beast has this token, and designs say 10 challenges or games that for 50 years in the future, he passes away, these games start to be released, and there's sort of this like legacy that gets built out that only people who have access to these tokens can participate in. They have governance rights over this community, so they can have a say on how it evolves. We're going to see just like these digital organizations with creators at the core, or multiple creators collaborating on, really take the world by storm. Probably not going to happen this year, but I think we're seeing the seeds planted of that. And I think it really starts to make sense when you think about it from like an artist perspective, where, there's this patronage model where people are supporting you through buying your art. Maybe you're earning some tokens as part of that, as in a simple loyalty program. But in the future, those points or those tokens might give you some sort of voting rights or control or access over this vault that maybe lives into perpetuity. So it's just wild and exciting. And I just say, if you're at all interested in the space, now's the time to jump in.
Okay, so membership club, this is where for me it's like really hitting.
Definitely, especially with the idea that both sides are accruing value, right? So the creator is getting some value, but then also like you are rewarded for being there early on.
Now, there's a bigger conversation here about big creators and this thought of that always gets thrown around on Twitter of like, what if I could buy stock in a creator? Or like, who's a creator I'd buy stock in? So how could you make that happen? It's kind of interesting to think like if Colin and Samir, if we took a pool of currency, we created our own coin, our own currency, and we own 95% of it. But then we offer a pool of 5% of that to token holders. And basically we sell those tokens as if they're like shares in Colin and Samir. Now there's a value to 100% of them. And essentially as our value increases, as our company does more revenue, then we pay out dividends. So that's one version of like a creator stock. It's like token holders, you are buying in the right to receive dividends from us, meaning like payments when we make more money. So it actually could be something where creators could open up like a stock pool. Now, additionally, because we're invested in educating people about creators, you might have people who actually want a seat and we say, hey, we're selling these NFTs and NFT holders will have a monthly meeting with us and they can have a say in what kind of content we're creating.
And that's kind of what Justin Kahn is doing, which is just this really interesting perspective shift on the membership club. Like it really differentiates it from maybe a Patreon where it's a very one-sided relationship where the creator really just delivers some content to the group. But in the token/NFT type of model, both groups are growing together and benefiting together. And I think that's a really interesting advantage potentially to creators utilizing NFTs and coins.
So the biggest question though is like, so where do you turn? How do you start? If you're a creator like us,
like what?
What? Do you go to like nftsforme.com? Like what do you do? How do you get funged?
Get funged?
Fungible? How do you get funged? Fungible? How do you get funged? How do you get
Let's move on.
All right. So this is a segue into our conversation with Jess as we talked about like how creators like us could actually get started.
Is there a role for smaller creators in this NFT space? Like take creators like us who are perhaps smaller creators, smaller community. We're concerned with educating, empowering the next generation of storytellers, making sure that we're giving that educational value to our community. How, outside of explaining and doing things like this, explaining what NFTs are, how do you think a brand like ours would interact?
Yeah, I mean, I think the reality is you guys do a great job and do good things for your community. And that is what's valuable. This gets complicated when you need to expand to millions and millions of people. And some of the larger social tokens, which again, I think are still in their infancy, have 2,000 holders. Like this is not big. And yet their market caps of these things are over $100 million. And the way to do it is to, again, how can you do something cool, experimental with your fans? What might they want to earn? Like, do they want to own some of your videos? Do they want to have access to you in a way that they can't have access to you right now? Are there artists or creators that are within your world right now that a collaboration with would make a lot of sense? And so I think like the risk is trying to be too perfect in an imperfect, unfigured out, that's not a word, but we'll go with it, world, right? Which is like, you got to experiment. And so I think as long as you have the lens of like, I'm going to do something that is for my community to bring us together, to work to this higher outcome together, how do we pool our social capital, our creativity, our connection, and represent that in a token in some way? I think that could be, membership, unique digital moments, ownership over some of your videos. Frankly, I don't know. And I would love for you guys just to put your heads on and think of like, maybe the best place to start is to ask your community.
I think that's it. You just had my mind going in terms of like, could we build a group of people who are essentially shareholders in the direction of our brand and get to vote on the types of topics we cover, the type of education we roll out, the videos we're making. And then as those videos are coming out, they feel a sense of ownership over it. And the same way, those voting rights become more valuable over time than the resale value of the tokens increase, especially if there's scarcity. We're only allowing, 100 people total to have a voice in the direction of our brand over the next 10 years. We have to vet you. You could buy the token and then, you're in.
So this warms my heart that more mainstream creators are coming to this realization. This is the thing that I think gets me, just ridiculously stoked on the opportunity here. It's the core thing that we work on at Seed Club. We help creators like yourself and like many people in your audience figure out how to structure these things well. And to me, what a token represents in the broader crypto space is ownership and a say in the network. So if I hold on to some Ethereum, I own a piece of the Ethereum network. If I hold Bitcoin, I own a piece of the Bitcoin network. To me, seeing that sort of spread through the entire economy really gave me a whole lot of hope. And the idea that we could have equity and ownership and be rewarded for our early participation in these networks. If you think about the first 5 Uber drivers that were driving around, created an immense amount of value for Uber, but none of them had stock options. None of them participated in that big IPO. That doesn't happen in the crypto space. And really, I just see it chunking down into communities. You think membership communities is really usually about, okay, I'm going to deliver value one way. I think that's a shitty use of the word community ultimately. Like, I think communities are more valuable because of the collaboration, and it's more like a platform, right? Like, Facebook's not a platform, they capture all the value, but a platform is usually where more value is captured by other entities rather than the central entity. And I think that's what we're going to see is these creator communities are going to be seen as platforms. They're going to be investable like platforms. They're going to see valuations like platforms. And a big reason why is because distribution and access and authority and trust is extremely rare right now. You cannot go buy it. It is expensive and takes many years to build. And you guys have built it through a lot of blood, sweat, and tears, and that's valuable. And now if you can step into this sort of, tokenized world, you're able to represent that value as a digital asset and use it to invest in faster growth or more aligned growth with your community. And I think that's like the really interesting thing. So it's definitely not a replacement for like a revenue source of generating monthly revenue for your community, but I think done right has an exponentially larger impact, especially I view it as you're pooling social capital, you're representing that capital as a digital asset, which allows you to bring the future value of that capital into the present, just like you would if you take a loan out or something like that, right? We're bringing that capital into the present such that you can invest it to grow your community faster, to do more today so that it's worth more in the future.
So after talking with Jess, which was a phenomenal conversation, and after talking with Jen, also a great conversation, I feel like both of us really started to believe in NFTs.
Well, when I started to understand it, to be quite honest, was around membership. Mm-hmm. Membership makes sense to me. I still have a very hard time with NBA Top Shots because
that I understand only from a resale type of perspective, right? Like it's a
collector's item.
It's a collector's item and it's an investment.
I guess it makes the same amount of sense as like owning a LeBron rookie card.
Yeah.
Right? I don't know.
Taking a picture of the card is not the same as owning the card. Right?
Yeah.
You can watch everyone can watch the Top Shot dunk, but not everyone can own that item.
I think the most important thing is like you go into all of this really open-minded and really exploratory, where you're just like, let me explore what's happening, and then let me start to think about how this could happen. And actually starting to open your mind around, like digital currency actually could happen. And we've talked about this before when it comes to money and currency is just influence and perceived value. That's it. And when creators get into the perceived value business, where you're saying that this is only worth as much as it is worth to you, the audience, or the person receiving this, the prices can go really high and the quantities can get really high as well. And it can be very lucrative, and it can actually be a beneficial relationship to both. I don't think it's actually selling air if the creators are thinking about how they are utilizing these tokens in a way that is dynamic and providing value to the audience members. But yeah,
our perspective now is a far departure from what it was 3 or 4 days ago, which was this is air. You and I texting us being like texting each other being like what is like this is the Matrix. What are we talking about?
Yeah, Logan made $5 million just basically being like, here's a graphic design. But now I start to understand it a little bit more. I get what's happening a little bit. I'm curious if you guys get it. Love to know if at this point in the episode, you've listened to a lot about NFTs, you've heard interviews, you've heard us talk about it. Did we help make sense of NFTs for you? Or are you still like, listen, guys, what are you talking about?
Yeah,
Like,
you lost me at fungible.
yeah. So let us know in the comments. Let us know if that creator stock conversation also made sense. I think that's super interesting around like, what if we opened up a pool of tokens and you could buy in? And like, I would probably do that for a band that I was really into when I was younger. You know, if there was a band that came on the scene and I was like, God, I love them. And they were like, get an NFT and it comes with a t-shirt, and that token, like, over time gets you access to shows or new music. Like, think about it in music. It's like, I'm an NFT holder, so I get the album first. You know, like, then it's like, that's awesome. I totally get it.
The opportunities are endless. The barrier, I think, is the education that's needed. The learning about the vernacular, learning about how it actually even works. You know, most of these NFTs are bought using Ethereum and Ethereum wallets. Like, that's totally lost on me.
You got ETH or what?
I do have some Ethereum, but like,
Yeah, I'm holding ETH, man.
the majority
Like,
of
who
people
isn't holding ETH?
The majority of people, I would have no idea how to actually transact with any of the Ethereum that I own.
You gonna buy a CryptoPunk?
If I could afford one,
Yeah,
sure,
CryptoPunks
yeah.
are expensive.
Yeah, they're very expensive. Yeah, maybe I would buy it. I don't know.
See, for me, this is where I'll close about this. Like, for me, the CryptoPunk, very cool, but like, I feel like I can always look at a CryptoPunk.
I feel that way
I
too.
don't feel like I need to own it. Membership, on the other hand, I might want in. CryptoPunks, cool designs, fun.
So you're out on CryptoPunks
I'm out.
for all the world to hear.
That's basically the closing of this. Is there's some NFTs I would buy if they're memberships, but I don't think I would buy art NFTs. Would you buy NFTs? What NFTs would you buy?
I think if Casey Neistat had some sort of NFT type membership club, like I could have a piece of that history even. I don't know. I don't know. I just think he's someone who I would be like, I would be interested in interacting with whatever that club is. I would have been more interested probably to get involved 10 years ago when I first started watching him.
Yeah.
But that's a creator that comes to mind.
Right. So I think both of us are saying, like, we still need the exchange of value. When if we bought an NFT, it would get us access to an experience that was exclusive to holding that token. The experience of ownership, exclusive ownership over a piece of art that's digital still is something I wouldn't do, because I don't do that even with physical art or I don't buy streetwear. I don't buy like anything that's collector's items.
Yeah.
But I will say that by the end of this episode, I understand more the buyer, like the person who would do that, who would buy digital art, who is interested in collector's items. I get it now.
So thanks to Jen, thanks to Jess for coming on this episode. Hopefully they helped you understand NFTs a little bit better. If you're still watching at this point in the video, thank you. And if you haven't yet, please like this video, because like we said in the beginning, it helps.
And make sure to subscribe to the channel, because this show comes out every Monday, and our next episode of this show is pretty exciting.
Yeah, and if you want to hear more about that, actually you can learn about it in the audio-only version, which is on Spotify. So link for that is in the description.
All right. What?
That's it. Over. Keeping that in.
I was going to say, roll the outro.
Same as the intro.
Yeah. Okay. All right, guys. See ya. We were just standing in our office, and I was like, why don't we just DM him? And we DM'd him, and he follows us on Twitter, and he immediately got back to us, and he was like, yeah, that sounds good. I'm down.
I think it's just the verified check, man. It's like that verified
Wow, it's
life.
getting to your head.
Yeah.
It's getting to your head. I'm really excited about that interview. I mean, it's arguably our biggest interview ever outside of when we had Mr. Beast on the channel.